down at any point. No pressure.
Okay.
All right. Hey guys, so today I have a great guest with me. I have Based Mama, and her channel is linked in the description. I definitely want to thank Based Mama and her beautiful tits for being here today.
Thank you.
And we're going to be discussing the legacy of feminism. Men and women are extremely divided. Before that, though, I want to introduce you guys to Base Mom a little bit more. Want to find out a little bit more about her, where she comes from, what her background is, and what her own experiences have been with feminism. So, getting started, Based, what have just tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Okay, I am the youngest of 7 kids. My parents were Mormon. My mom was really traditionalist, and I think it was about 7 or 8, she started going to college. And by the time I was 10, um, she started to kind of, I don't know, be absorbed into feminism and, critical theory and women's history and all that crap. Um, and it changed her personality. It really did. And I, as a child, was just observing this shift, and it was unsettling to me to see her go from. She was a great mom when I was a kid. She homeschooled us, and she schooled other people's kids if they had disabilities like autism or severe ADHD. She would teach them as well, and she was very nurturing towards children. And then when she started going to college, she became less and less concerned with not just other people's kids, but her own kids. And by the time I was in middle school and high school, I think I maybe spoke to her once or twice a week, even though I'm living in the house, but she was always gone doing something, some class, some seminar, some whatever. And so we had this really immense, massive chasm between us, and um, really, she wasn't there for her kids once she got her bachelor's degree. It was pretty much the end of my mom as I knew her. And after that, it was feminist theory, and this is how things need to be. And it really turned me off of feminism really quickly. But to be honest, the thing that really broke me from feminism was they have kind of this weird, crazy, like almost they make an idol out of the vagina and they worship it, and it's really creepy.
They
Uh,
worship vagina.
well, they have the vagina suits and crap at their stupid pussy march, and they paint vaginas and they do art with their vaginas, and it's, to me as a kid, seeing stuff like that was really, really unsettling and really uncre. It was just, you you couldn't marry that and common sense together because it's just a body part. It was like it was. I like ancient culture, so to me it was like the phallic worship of like ancient, now kind of dead and gone cultures, where that was like their symbol of power or whatever. And it seemed to me like feminism was trying to make the vagina that symbol of power, and they talk about it all the time. um, Whether they're talking about their cycle, whether they're talking about it's my body, whatever, it's always like that freaked me out as a kid. Like, think about your perspective as like a 10 or 11-year-old kid, and everything is about your mom's vagina. It's really creepy. And it really put me off of it kind of permanently, just as something I didn't really want to participate in. But the rest of my observation around it was kind of just the effects of this kind of self worship. It's not something they've earned. It's something that they are, and therefore they're proud of it. Okay, that's fine, but making that like your deity almost, it was very unsettling, and it does have natural consequences to society when your priorities shift from an external view towards others to an internal or selfish view. And it's going to have natural societal effects. And the problem with these very selfish choices is that the consequences of them will always fall on the children. And that, I think, is a huge failing of feminism. that they don't really care about that. And I do.
Yeah. I remember reading this article. I think it was like some Brazilian feminist who left the whole feminist thing. She was like really prominent in the feminist community, and she talked about a lot of what you're talking about. She mentioned the lesbianism was very prominent in the feminist movement.
Oh,
But
yeah, it is.
it is. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your experience with lesbian and feminism. I mean, because I don't know anything about it, but I've heard that it has played a role in it.
Well, I'm bisexual, but mine I understand is it's what's referred to as circumstantial. Um, it was as a reaction to going into puberty while still not having dealt with uh, the sex abuse that I suffered as a kid. So I understood that it wasn't a natural inclination. It was as a reactive force, and that happens whether people like to admit it or not. There is quite a lot of environment that goes into that.
Are
um,
you okay discussing the sex abuse? Because we were talking a little bit about it
oh
beforehand,
yeah,
and you mentioned also the effect that it can have on men. So
yeah.
let's shift into that very quickly.
Thank you. Father was child molesting, molested my brother too, which a lot that probably surprises a lot of I would say like normie types. They don't tend to think of sex abuse as something that affects boys anyway.
Okay, so you just said that your brother was also your father molested you and your brother.
Me, two, three of my sisters, and my brother.
And this was sexual abuse.
Yeah. I mean, he was raised by an alcoholic who was very abusive as well, and this is the sexual behavior that he learned. That's one of the big things with um, pedophilia is when you're a kid and this happens to you, that's your formative years. That's where you're deciding how things are in the world, and you you go you think that's how people relate sexually. And so you until you correct that, you have to realize that it's wrong, and what does normal sexuality look like, et cetera, and figure it out and amend it, because that's normal to you, just like it was normal for us. We didn't know any better,
So
until somebody said something.
so tell me something. So
Mhm.
you have a rape survivor on your Twitter. Is that
Yeah.
what that reference to?
No, I was actually raped by a woman.
What? You were raped by a woman?
Two women, actually. Yeah. And when I was in college.
You, you're just a mixed
Um,
bag.
well, I was because I was trying to figure out where I was at, and I was still trying to find like some good in feminism, and I was part of the LGBT community, and it was God, I'm gonna sound so bad. I hate lesbians. Like I really do. When we were in college, we had the LGBT, or it was just LGBT club back then. And it was mostly the gay guys ran it, and they did stuff like had block parties and um, Fourth of July parties, stuff like that, to kind of like ingratiate themselves to the community, and that was the best way to do it. We had some, I don't know what this bitch's problem was, but she was one of these people that had like a bunch of Zuni tattoos, but she was a white chick, and she was, going for that like fat middle-aged dad look that lesbians seem to love for some reason. And she was a turf. She was really mean, and everything became political. She didn't want to go from embracing the community around her. She wanted to be adversarial. She wanted to scream in people's faces, and it honestly it killed the group that we had there. But that's kind of, I figured out really quickly that when people say feminism infects everything, that's what they're talking about. Because you just
Let me just ask you.
sorry.
So these women, were they feminist also?
Yeah, they seem to always be, to be
Wait,
honest.
so you were raped by two feminist women?
Yeah. We were at a stupid LDB thing after they had kind of taken over and kicked out all the gay guys, and they were fun. I mean, the gay guys were really fun, and they were very inclusive. If you just wanted to hang out with our group or whatever, it wasn't like, no, get out, you cishet piece of shit, because we didn't even have words like that anyway. um I think the worst thing they said was breeder, and it was usually as a joke. So it was just kind of one of those things. But oh God, they disgusted me. Like, I hate feminism so much. Like, I'm trying really hard to talk about it without being like, fuck those crazy bitches. But they are crazy bitches sometimes. It's you have your kind of casual observer, your teenage girl who's like, yeah, female empowerment or whatever, and they're gonna take that surface, the pretty flowers that they show you to bait you into this. And you don't really see, you don't realize that you're walking into a trap. And that's what it is they give you this, aren't you so oppressed, don't you feel like you deserve better in your life? And they don't want you to work for it or anything, they just want other people to give it to you, by basically being bitches. But oh, sorry, I want to go back to what I was talking about before, because it's really important. I didn't know that there was such a thing as a men's rights activist. I was 10, 11, so it would have been like 90, yeah, 91, 92. We went to go get therapy, and the only place that we had to get therapy, of course, in the town was the Women's Resource Center.
This was after the sexual after you were molested. You and your sister were molested, and your brother.
Yeah, and we went to go get therapy, and we got therapy right away. They had this like really, worked out methodology for dealing with sex abuse for girls, and it was a very fluid, efficient process. But when it came to my brother, it was like they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to help him, and that it affected him for the rest of his life. And it was he still has a lot of trouble, relating to people in intimate ways. Like, hugs are awkward even between family. He he's trying, but it's hard for him even now, and it's been 30 years almost
Okay, so
since this happened.
you told me you were 35, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I guess it's been like 25 years.
Okay, how old is your brother then?
My brother is 40.
So he's older than you. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
yeah. um well, because like I said, when you grow up being sexually abused and you're groomed, it doesn't matter if it's like a parent or an uncle or a friend of the family or whatever. You don't realize that this is not a normal relationship between these two people. You really don't know that because you're a kid. You're learning the world as you go. So if your uncle molests you, and you assume that this is the normal relationship for niece or nephew and uncle, or a lot of times it will be a partnership, which I hate that people don't realize this. They always let the female um, get away, and I hate that so much because a lot of women, they'll be married to a guy, and maybe the guy will go to jail, right? But um, the chick will have supplied him with children to abuse and be an abuser herself, sometimes even more brutal, even more disgusting. Um, and she'll basically get away scot free because pussy pass, I guess. And I hate that. I think females who rape and abuse children, they need to get the book thrown at them just as hard as male perpetrators. You have to set an example. You have to make them pay, because they're going to, as long as you're setting a legal precedent for them to basically walk away from this, they will perpetuate it to the people that they attract for romantic relationships. God help any children they have, because they will teach them the same thing, and they will keep perpetuating this cycle because of their position as females in the natural order. And I hate that they abuse it that way, but they really do. It's miserable. But with my brother, I will give it to my mom, feminist as she was, she went well out of her way to try to find somebody who had some experience dealing with a boy who had been sexually abused. And it took her a while, but she tried, and she found a couple of people at the University of Virginia, but they really didn't have, it was more theory. They hadn't actually uh, given therapy to a boy who had been abused. And it was very sloppy, very choppy, very haphazard, the way that it was approached with him. And that's one of the failings of the system that we have in dealing with sex abuse, is not recognizing that, you know, males and females are different. They just are different. Their biology differentiates them, and their brain structure differentiates them, and the way they process information is different.
I want to
So,
ask something. You said that you mentioned before we came on and we were deciding to discuss this topic, you pointed out something about women being more submissive, men being more dominant, and affecting them differently.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to sexuality, women are naturally the passive participant in sexuality, right? And this is the feminist thing. All sex is rape, blah, 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 whatever. It's not. Just shut up, bitch. I hate it when they say that. Women are sexually passive naturally, and males are sexually dominant naturally. When you're a boy and you've been sexually abused, you have an added layer of violation, and it's the emasculation, or the basically theft of your natural sexual position. So you have this added violation on top of what you would be dealing with a female victim. You have yet another psychological aspect to it that is very rarely, if ever, actually addressed. There is almost no money that goes into helping boys. It's ludicrous how much money gets dumped into problems for women, or problems for girls, and you don't see that coming back to boys. And there is male sexual abuse. It happens. It's in some places it's institutional, and you're not
Let me
dealing
ask.
with it.
I'm looking at the comments, and there are obviously going to be people who are assholes, but this is the Angry MGTOW channel.
It's cancer. It's that's what it is. It's chat.
But here's the thing. You're kind of cunty, so I think you can handle it. So Bella Shepherd says she wants to complain about the abuse, then maybe she should be blaming her fucking mother for being a piece of shit and not protecting them.
Oh, I blame my mother. To this fucking day, she swears she never knew what was happening. And I'm like, bullshit, because we all told you, and you cried and then never spoke about it again. Because when you're children, you're powerless in that situation. She knew what was going on. It wasn't advantageous for her to do anything about it. So she didn't. And that's what
Now,
it was.
whenever I hear a woman say that she's been raped or she's been molested, I always take it with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of women today who say they were raped.
Oh,
And
yeah. Jesus. Yeah.
rape today can be, a guy touches your shoulder, I was raped, or they just make it up. I mean, do you remember Jackie from the whole Jackie thing last year with the Rolling Stones? 2 years ago?
God, I want to kill that bitch. Oh, Jesus. And that fucking mattress chick, too. Oh, if I got my hands on her, I'd beat her. I'd just beat her ass, and I'd do the fucking time. I'd pay the fucking fines. I hate these fucking bitches, because they suck money out of real care that people need. They make it so that if somebody, I mean, it's already like, think about it from, you're a kid, you're a boy, or now a man or whatever, in college, and you've been abused or whatever, or you've been raped, and then here's this chick wandering around the fucking campus with a goddamn IKEA mattress bitching about how nobody cares about rape, and you think, yeah, that's right, nobody does care about rape. So you go to, you know talk to her about your experience, and she laughs in your fucking face. Fuck her. Like, oh God, I'm sorry.
No, let it flow. Let the emotions flow. It's funny. So I think that it's because of women like that in society, where more people are just starting to become unempathetic towards women, and why there's, increasingly
you don't know what's true and what's not. How would you know?
So let me ask you this. When it comes to, college students, two college students hooking up, let's say girl gets drunk, guy gets drunk, they go back to one of their rooms and sex happens. Has rape occurred in your mind?
No. Unless some other dude who's sober comes in there and starts banging her, then no. Like,
Okay,
that
so
doesn't make sense. They both decided to become intoxicated. They both decided to go somewhere and hook up. They're both equally at fault. I have no sympathy for women like that.
so
That
if
is not rape. Like,
so
it's,
if you hear that a woman went back to this guy's apartment, she had been drinking, and he had sex with her, and then she said she was raped, how would you look at that? You would say no rape occurred?
it would depend on the circumstances, to be honest. If she had been like drugged or something, I might be suspicious of it. But if there's no like legal action
Hmm.
that can be taken, then I don't think that you should even take it seriously. Like these chicks who, tweet, live tweeting their rape. I'm being raped, or I was just raped. Why don't you call the fucking police, you dumbass? Why are you tweeting this shit? It just seems so dumb. To me, like I would I would take it seriously if she bore some harm. Um and then I would say, okay, like I'm more of an accept and verify type. I wouldn't just automatically believe her because she's like, oh, we got shit faced and we went to have sex and I think he raped me. I would actually say, are you sure about that? As someone who has been violently violated, trust me, you know the fucking difference.
Let's go back to the story where you were raped by the lesbians. You were at a party, they kicked the
Mhm.
gay guys out, and how did you get raped by the lesbians?
They were like, I'm not like one of these people that's really like woo woo sex. Um, and they were getting like naked and pulling out, dildos and all this like S and BDSM stuff, and I'm not into that. If that's your thing, cool, whatever. And so I'm trying to get away, and I had been drinking, but not. I had like two wine coolers or something like that, and I was trying to get out of the apartment that we were in, and they kept there. It was like a game. It was really fucking weird. They sort of kind of half encircled me, so I couldn't get through the door. And they're like, "Come on, stay, stay, stay," and they backed me into one of the corners, into the corner bedroom, um, and pushed me on the bed. And they actually like held me down, stripped me down, and started basically raping me with a dildo. I know that's not what rape seems like, but it's a violation. If you're saying no and they're proceeding, you're being raped. That's what's happening. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, you know. But it's one of those things where you're outnumbered. You can't go anywhere, and you just have to sit there, and you fight, and you just wait for them to have their fun and then leave. And it sucks, but that's what it is. And after that, I was done. I mean, I got out of the community. I walked away. I just was like, fuck this. I'm not
You
doing
dropped out of
this.
college?
Yeah. Because if you go and tell them, this is a fucked up thing. If you go to campus police and you try to describe this situation, they ignore you. They're like, oh, you girls doing your, thing that you do. And they blow it off because they're like, girls can't rape people. They can't. They certainly can't rape men. So why would you ever think that they could rape a woman? It's what the fuck? So you just kind of are like, well, okay. I mean, you can't do anything. And because they were allowed to get away with it, um, they just they just kept going on like nothing happened. And so I left and I moved to Tennessee, and I started going to college there, and just I couldn't stay. I mean, nobody listens. It's fucked up when you say a woman did this. They're like, ah ha 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 ha.
So
Like you
you
fucking
cried.
joke.
You cried after this.
What do you mean cried?
I mean, usually a lot of rape. If you were in rape, you would usually cry, right?
I think given my experience, I didn't really cry. I was pissed. I was angry, because well, it's natural. You've been violated, but you you can't do anything. I'm feeling sorry for myself, and crying over it is probably not going to do me any good. Um, I just was like, I have to take some kind of proactive action to get myself away from the situation. And so that's what I did. I left that college. Moved out of state actually, and just tried to move on because clearly nothing was going to be done. And then that's why I was talking about where I understand from the perspective. It's fucked up, but I do understand when guys say I've been sexually violated by a woman, and you get that fucking reaction where it's just like, ha, it's like it's a joke. What the fuck? Like, you can't get them to take you seriously. And it's
Well,
really
I
angering.
did I did a video a few days ago about a guy who said that he was raped by a woman in college,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he had gotten drunk with her, and I don't know if they went to like a sorority house. He got drunk, and he was really shit faced, and she had like a bottle of liquor of alcohol, and she just kept feeding him alcohol all night. Then she took him back to her bedroom, and then he got in her bunk bed, and then he like fell asleep, and then like the next thing he was aware of was she was on top of him riding him, and he said that you would think that as a man he could just push her off because he didn't consent to this, but he was just so shocked in that moment that he froze, and that is something I did not
What are
really.
you,
I
yeah,
did.
what are you gonna do? You're blackout drunk, you wake up and this woman is raping you. It would be such a shock, and you wouldn't even know how to respond to that.
But I mean, why didn't he push her off? He
Well, if
says that he
he
was
was
just so
sufficiently
frozen.
intoxicated, he wouldn't be very well in control of his body. I mean, you can, this is something that I think people, they don't really think about, you know, um, you're having a hard on is a natural reaction to stimulation. So you can actually be scared and have an erection. It's not, it's not unnatural. And I think they think that if a man is in a situation like that he could control that. You know what I'm saying? I think they assume that why would you have an erection if you're being raped? This is a terrible situation, right? Why would that turn you on or whatever? Because that's their mentality, that you have to have some other than a physical response. There has to be something else to instigate an erection, but that's not true. It would just be any kind of stimulation at all to the pudendal artery, and any kind of excess blood flow can stimulate an erection. I'm a
So
military brat, and I heard about guys who were literally scared out of their fucking minds and being freaked out by the fact that they had an erection. Like, they're being shot at and bombed, and they're like, "What the fuck?" So it's not always something you can will into being. It's very often just a natural bodily response.
what became of your father after your mother found out that he had been molesting you guys? What became of him?
Well, in the state of Virginia, you can't rape a man. um, so he was convicted of aggravated rape, but for my brother's case, he was convicted of lewd acts with a minor, which it went so far beyond that. But that was really the only thing under the law that they could charge him with. And the judge sentenced him with, extreme prejudice, and he spent almost 20 years in prison. And they actually paroled him, which I don't think they should have done, because he didn't get any therapy while he was in prison. There wasn't any kind of rehabilitation there, because you can't leave a child molester in general population. He'll be killed. They'll just kill him. And so he was in basically confinement with other child molesters. So he didn't get any therapy. There wasn't any rehab, anything like that. And it was he was released, and then my brother went to, like, talk to him and kind of confront him as his way of like dealing with this. And he was so freaked out because he didn't seem sorry. He seemed like he just wanted to get married again and have more kids and do it again.
Oh
It
shit.
was like it scared the shit out of him. And he contacted the parole board and said, "Look, I think you really need to keep an eye on him, because he doesn't seem sorry. And he's telling me, because he's talking to him, He's telling me that he's considering doing this again. You guys need to watch him, because he has a lifetime ban on anyone under 18. He's not allowed any contact with anyone under 18 as part of the terms of his release. So they at least that's good, you know.
You said something interesting. You said that it went far beyond lewd acts. So did he touch your brother, or did he rape your brother?
He raped my brother. And that's, you know, that's what it was. It was that's why I'm saying that extra layer of abuse that you really can't.
Were you guys also raped by him, or were you touched by him?
I don't really. My sisters just, they're not going to talk about it.
Okay.
You know, they're just not going to talk about it.
Okay.
They actually talk to my father, like they keep a relationship with him, and have even let him around their kids, knowing what my brother told them. Because their psychology is that they're just, you know, they turn, you know, when you're dealing like with your parents, you kind of accidentally become that kid again. That's normal psychology.
Wait a minute. So your father has seen his grandkids?
Yeah. I keep well away from him, well away from him. But it was, you know, like I said, he was just a product of his raising. I think what, excuse me. I think that he didn't know anything else, and it wasn't ever given to him as something inappropriate. And he still to this day doesn't understand why we were so mad at him about it.
Okay,
You
so
know what I mean?
what did he do to you specifically? Doesn't sound like you were raped then.
No, I was. For me, it was mostly just molestation. I was kind of too young for him because I was the baby.
How old were you?
I was 10, I think I was 10 when my parents split up. I want to say it. Maybe 10, but it was I was still really too young, and he hadn't spent as much time with me. So I'm trying to remember. I think my the oldest daughter that he abused, because he didn't abuse all of us actually. I think he raped her, and then definitely I know that he raped my brother. But I think the three babies, I don't think so.
That sounds like a sick fucker who should never have gotten out of jail.
I think when they reviewed him for the parole board, if they knew that he wasn't, you know, in a mindset to call what he did wrong, I don't think they should have paroled him. I mean, that's kind of one of those things with this situation where it's really fucked up, because actually he got convicted the year before they stopped paroling 25 to life people. So when he turned 65 and or maybe it was 66, and they reviewed him, they basically kicked him out they didn't want to pay for his health care, so they kicked him
out. So we've been talking a lot about all of this, and you know, this really goes back to the legacy of feminism, because feminism is hypocrisy. You look at what happened to you in college, and with these women, and feminism is creating an environment where women can prey upon other women without any repercussion. They can attack women, they can attack men, and they can with any various sexual wrongs, and they can get away with it, among other things. And when I spoke to Roaming Millennial, I brought up the fact that men and women are very divided today. This is something that you agree on, right?
Yeah, I would say that it's I'm glad that you watched my video, because you kind of like watch me spill my thoughts. It created such a division, but the rights of the woman over men, over even their own children. And it's such a disruption of society that's why we have such a dysfunctional and discordant society, is because we've upset the natural order. Like, you know, if you take it back to hunter gatherer, you know, the men go out and hunt, the women gather and care for the children and animals at home, and men are literally risking their lives to provide for the female, in a very real sense with various predators and things. So if that's our natural biological state, and that we built our societies around that natural biology, and then feminism kind of came out of nowhere to upset that. It You had a hierarchy, which women hate this, but you did have the man over the woman for specific reasons of biology. It's because he's stronger, he's more adept physically, and has better reaction time. I don't know. My daughter loves to watch those dad saves videos where you see the dad like making these, instant catches or blocks to, protect their kids. That's the protective instinct in men that is fueled by things like, their testosterone, their hormonal balance is normal, but it's also the same thing that makes them, engage in risky behaviors. But it's the same thing that makes them, jump off of a bridge and into a river to save a kid. It's not a bad thing. It's just people deciding that they're going to decide that it's a bad thing. And so they tell men that these things that have kept the entire human race going all this time, those are now suddenly and for absolutely no reason bad. And women who are, let's face it, as far as humanity goes, they're real risky. You might have a child, but you might die in childbirth. She might have further complications from that, all this stuff, where she's going to be potentially an adverse risk to the community. Just, if she has kids, she's not going to be physically functional for a while and things like that. One of the things that feminism likes to sell you is, the hardworking woman in the field who just has her baby and gets up and keeps going. That's bullshit. That's a huge load of shit.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I mean, in my 30s now, I can definitely say I don't have as much energy as I did in my 20s, but I'm still pretty strong. But as a woman, how do you feel now? 35 versus 25?
25, I think I was just humming along, living in society, not really realizing that I was really dropping the ball socially. Um, I would definitely say I was very selfish because nobody ever told me not to be honest with you. Um, it was society, and your social pressures are to be really kind of selfish and self-centered. Whereas before, back in the good old days, I guess, you had men and women both contributed to society in order to advance society. You each had your roles, and that's what you did, and that helped to grow the society. But feminism kind of flipped that on its head, where women wanted to put themselves above men and children in the hierarchy. And so it's like turning a pyramid on its head. Now you have the heaviest burden to a society, which, let's face it, it is women. Um, you're flipping it over so that you're now having this heavy burden on top of a load that cannot, or a structure that cannot bear it to be there. And so there's this huge imbalance where you just can't do anything. I mean, guys are really stuck right now in society because we have a legal system, or a legal system that's totally against them. Like my state, we don't have the Duluth model. We have a primary aggressor law. So some counties will adopt the Duluth model, but overall, it's, if she hits first, she's going to jail. That's it. It's whoever started that shit, because it became such a problem where you had chicks would just scream, "He hit me," and he wouldn't even fucking touch her. He hit me, and now he's going to jail, and she's, immediately going to file for divorce, and now he's got, a DV arrest on his record. They do shit like that a lot.
Is that the primary aggressor law, or is that the Duluth? I'm not familiar with them very well.
The Duluth model is I can't remember the specific language, but it basically says always arrest the guy. And primary aggressor is whoever started this shit. whoever, threw the first punch is going to jail. And
I'll interject real quickly. I'll tell you guys a story. A number of years ago, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my parents had a house in New York, and as you know, New York real estate is worth a lot of money, and their property was worth about $500,000. So my mother wanted the property for herself. So what she did was her family members got together and they said that you need to get the man out of the house. And I never got along with my father, but my brothers, my mother, and her family, they plotted and they said, you need to get him, you need to basically lure him back to the bedroom and say that he hit you. And then and basically you just fall on the ground, we'll call the police and we'll have them take him away and then you'll get the house. I've never talked about this on stream, I don't think. And I found out that my brothers and my family, my cousin, everyone, they plotted. They actually had my father lured to the bedroom, where my mother lured him to the bedroom while they were downstairs. Then she fell to the floor, claimed that he struck her. They called the police as per plan, and he was arrested. And my father worked in law enforcement. I've talked about the fact that my father was a police officer. He lost his gun. He lost a lot of things, and he got desk work, and it was just really ridiculous. This happened a few years ago, and it's crazy how they literally plotted, and no one told me because in my family, have you ever watched a show called Weeds?
Weeds?
Weeds, yeah. It was an old show about a family that lived in San Diego, and the mother would sell marijuana. Well, anyway, everyone in that family was a piece of shit, and except for one guy. There was this guy named Silas, and they called him the white sheep of the family. And for me, I've always had like somewhat of a conscience, so I've always been the white sheep. And it's funny because I saw that happen, and I just thought to myself, "Holy cow!" That she just basically all she had to say was he hit her, and there was no proof whatsoever.
Completely ruined his career and took the house. So she's Jesus fuck. I'm just kind of shocked. Like, what the fuck? I mean, it's probably not surprising to you and probably not to your viewers either, but to me, I'm like, holy shit, what a fucking cunt. Like, to just do that, to not even care.
I didn't know until my younger brother told me, because of course no one told me. I was the only one that didn't know. And it's like, wow, women can do this. Like, my mother was a feminist, very much like your mother, and she had fun in the 70s and 80s. So, hanging out with Little Richie and all those other crazy people. She was one of those people. And she had her fun, and then she did the whole feminist thing, and she was a feminist through the 90s. And I look at the models, like, we're around the same age, and it's interesting that our 70s mothers, they all grew up to be these people who, were ultra feminists, and they allowed, they damaged their children. They allowed significant damage to happen to their children. And it's funny because for me, like, even though my father did a lot of bad things to me, I still feel like my mother had a lot to play in it. And I felt like I never got what I needed from my mother. I never got that safety that I needed from her. Did you experience that as well?
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, like I said, she was, very traditional. She homeschooled us. She schooled other people's kids that had kind of been given up on, by the school system. And she was a very nurturing person until she started going to college. And then it was a huge personality shift that she became more and more and more interested in feminism and critical theory and women's history and women's studies and all that other shit they do. And she started to spend more and more time in activities surrounding that. And she wasn't there for her kids. So she just sort of became very self-involved. I think, is that kind of the thing you're talking about, where she was just out for number one?
I can understand. I can definitely understand that. Now, when you look at the relationship between men and women in society today, and a lot of young men and a lot of young women have grown up with feminist mothers in society that told women they can do everything, anything and everything, and they were gods. They were essentially goddesses, while men were oppressors and victimizers. You have young men who've grown up with low self-esteem, women who've grown up with an extreme elevated amount of self-esteem simply for being women. And then you have people like the MGTOW who don't want to have anything to do with women, are just going their own way. I mean, when you look at the division of men and women in society today, do you think that this is going to be a lasting legacy of feminism for generations? I do. And do you think that men and women will ever get along again?
Um, I I would approach it very, if you're the marrying kind, and let's say it's something you want to do, I would approach women very, very cautiously. Um, this come from a chick. I have like 3 female friends that I've had my entire life, and everybody else is guys because women tend to be very devious. They can be very two-faced. They will turn on each other instantly. So don't think that just because she likes you, she won't flip on you just as fast, because she will. And you have to, I would just say, be very, if it's something you want to do, be cautious, be aware of the laws where you live, especially. Um, look into what if shit goes wrong? What kind of divorce settlement are you going to be looking at? Because you have to remember that as you become more and more successful, that's more and more that could potentially be stripped away from you. Um, so you have to look at that too. I mean, most, like, I know tons of MGTOWs, and I 100% respect the cost benefit argument. It's absolutely true. Like, Jesus, what, you can't argue with it. The law is literally fucking stacked against you. Um, like, I'm engaged. I don't want to get married. He wants to get married. I don't want to get married because I don't want to corner him into a position where he has no out. And they will push you, in family court. They will actually push the woman to take more shit. It's
I've
like,
heard.
Jesus Christ, man. I had the judge ask me, because I'm divorced. We have 50-50 split, because we're a 50-50 split state, thank God. Um, he asked me, you don't want part of the retirement plan, you don't want part of the stock options, you don't want this, you don't want that. I'm like, no, I just want to go, and he wants to go, and why can't you just let this go?
Let's
Because,
let's talk a little bit about your first marriage. So, all of your children that you have now, they were with your first husband.
yeah.
What happened?
No, actually, I got married when I was 18. I was married for about a year, and that didn't work out. And because I was young and dumb, and to be honest, I shouldn't, but I do blame my mom for that. She kind of gave me the impression that marriage wasn't really that big a deal. It wasn't something you had to take very seriously. And so I didn't, and to my own detriment. And I use my life as the cautionary tale for my kids. Don't be like me. Don't do the stupid shit I did. Like,
Did you have a
you know,
kid in that? Did you have a kid in that time frame when you were 18?
yeah, I was 19 when she was born. She we split. He had several businesses, and they wanted they wanted me to have like half of this or that, and I'm like, no, I that's not mine. That's his business. He built that. Well, you were there with him. No, I was at home. I didn't build that. And sorry, I don't know why they do that, but they try to like get you to take more. It was very unsettling, actually. And so, well, that one dissolved, obviously. And I moved to Arizona, and got married again, and we were married for about 11 years. And it wasn't going to work, so we wanted to split, and we worked it out. We had 50-50 custody. They make you pay child support here, even if you have split custody, which I thought was really weird. You can't refuse it, or you're like in violation of the law or whatever. So we tried to work that out. We set the minimum, so that we didn't have any conflicts or whatever. That was a surprise to me. I really didn't know that the state would force you to pay child support even if no one asked for it. So we figured that one out. Um, but we had, you know, very amicable split. But when they were finalizing the dissolution, I'm sorry, I take anti-seizure meds that kind of slows my speech a little bit. When we were there to finalize the dissolution, the judge asked me, "Don't you want this? Don't you want that? Don't you want that? Don't you want that?" And I'm like, why would I want to take from him what he had built? That's his. Like, I don't want to. Why would you do that to a person that, if you presumably love this person, why would you want to take literally everything they have ever built out from underneath of them, for any other reason than to be a bitch?
So your second marriage, you said was it 7 years or 11 years?
11 years.
11 years. Okay, so you're together for a while, and so now you're single, but you do have a fiance, and he's pushing to get married again.
Yeah, I kind of learned my lesson. I told him I'll commitment ceremony you all over the place, but I just don't want to. I don't want to put you in that position, because I saw, even when you have an amicable split, the way that the family court system is very adversarial and very entrenched in being in being against the man. I mean, it's miserable. You can't do anything. So I don't want, like, I'm happy where we're at. I don't want to do anymore. Like, I don't want to put him in that same position where you can be as amicable as you want, but when you split, they're going to fuck him over anyway.
Let me ask you this. Now, when you look at MGTOW, for example, for a long time, I was one of the angriest MGTOWs in the entire world. And yeah, I went through a period where I hated women. That's when
you said, what do you call that? You said it, but I can't remember what it was called.
It's called the red pill rage.
Red pill rage. Okay.
Yeah. So I went through a period of time where I hated women. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, like, how does it happen? Like, I know lots of guys who are MGTOW, but they don't really ever talk about, like, how they came to be that. They're just doing their own thing.
For me, I mean, I had the whole lesbian mother thing, crazy bitch, was married, doing her own thing on the side, extremely feminist. And I grew up not needing what I needed from her. She was a total cunt. And, fast forward, as a result of having that kind of mother, I found that I started to attract women like her. And it's like a pattern. You ever notice that, like, the person that hurts you, you tend to attract those kinds of people?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I put it? I guess I had a lot of ups and downs, and I lost everything for after a while, and there was some really bad years. And eventually became MGTOW when I started learning more about going your own way. This was like back in 2010, 2011. And, I got really angry once I started learning about the nature of women, because I never knew that I never knew there was a thing called female nature. When you're indoctrinated, you're taught that men and women are equal. And women, it's like women think pretty much the exact way that you do. Are you laughing?
Yes, I hate that. It's bullshit.
But
men and women may be, like, equal in worth or whatever to propagating the species, but you are certainly not equal in ability or talent. That is ridiculous.
It was, I mean, it's not just that. I mean, it's like, it was not just ability and talent. I thought, like you're told, like, essentially, like, we're the same. So you think that, like, oh, she's thinking the way you're thinking. There's no female nature. Women aren't catty or clingy or devious. None of that stuff exists. That's an individual thing. It's not something that is more among women and less among men. I never knew female nature was real. So I constantly got taken advantage of, or I constantly put myself in bad situations where I didn't even know how to relate to women or just how to get what I wanted in a relationship. And it created a lot of problems. And once I started learning about female nature, and I realized that, I was really abused. And it's funny, I didn't realize that I had been abused so badly until I got a therapist. And my mother was really angry. Like, when she found out that I was seeing a therapist, a special child therapist, she was really upset about this. I was in my late 20s, and she didn't want me to see this woman. and she was a child developmental therapist, specialized in child development therapy, because I was going through a mental breakdown. And as soon as I walked into her office and told her what was going on, she goes, "I don't know what your diagnosis is, but I know it's your mother."
Oh, Jesus. Is that obvious?
When I was around 10, 11, when I was young, my first pediatrician told me, as soon as you can, get away from your mother because she's going to ruin your life. So there were red flags throughout my life. My very first doctor as a little kid told me, get away from your mother. She's going to ruin your life. And I was a little kid, and I didn't know why this man would tell me this. And eventually she made us change doctors. But, you know, fast forward many years later, I'm starting to have mental breakdowns. I'm afraid of working with women. I can't stand being around them. I can't relate to them. I'm having a hard time with people in general. And at first, they thought it was autism. It wasn't autism. It wasn't Asperger's. It was my mother. And it was, I got a lot better after the therapist I saw said, you need to move far away. I moved very far away from her. But I had a mental breakdown still, regardless, because after leaving and being away from her, I became so angry. Like, how did I let my life come to this? How did I throw away so much time? Why was I listening to her this entire time? I felt like shit. I blamed myself. I didn't know what to do. I lost everything. I became reckless with my money, my finances. I ended up without a place to live for about 8 months. It took a while for me to get back on my feet. And part of me didn't even want to get back on my feet. I wanted to die, because I just kept blaming myself for my mother. And that's when the hatred started. That's when I started.
Sorry. Can I ask a question? Why would you blame yourself for your mother's behavior?
Well, because you talk about it. It's like women are coddled by society. In other words, something bad happens to a woman, they say, it's not your fault. You're sympathetic. When people are sympathetic for a woman, but as a man, we have agency. So we take accountability for what happens in our lives. When a man doesn't feel like he has control of his life, it's the worst feeling. It's easier to blame yourself than to say that you were a victim of something, or that you were victim. It's horrible to say it, but it's easier to say that, I'm responsible for something that I'm not responsible for, just so that I don't feel like a victim, because men don't want to feel weak. Men don't want to feel like they had their power taken away. And when you're a little kid, when you're a little boy, you don't have much power. You have no control of your life. Everything revolves around your mother. And if your mother does not take care of you, you can die. And I didn't have that safety. So for me, it was easier to blame myself than to admit that I was a victim, that I had no power, because then you feel weak. You don't feel like a man, and you don't know how to regain that. Because as a man, you're in a relationship with a woman, you want to be able to take care of her, you want to be able to take care of yourself, you want to be able to lead. But if you feel like you were a victim in life, how the hell can I take care of someone else if I couldn't even take care of myself? Can you understand?
Yeah. Oh, I understand. That's very interesting. I'm sorry, I'm momming you a little bit. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm a mom. I can't help it. Like, I try to not be, a shitty mom. But
wait, don't worry. I'm staring at the picture of your tits, so you're not my mom.
Okay. Fair enough.
But it's.
I'm sorry.
It's what caught me off guard is, like, once I started realizing these things and started realizing, okay, it wasn't all my fault, I became hateful. And I started getting angry at all women. I started blaming all women for everything that my mother had done. I started blaming all women for everything that my mother had been. And I began I wanted to get back at women. I wanted to punish women for what had happened to me, what my mother had let happen. That fucked up childhood, all the evil things, all the shitty things that happened, all the feminism. And that I went through the red pill rage. A lot of guys go through what we call the red pill rage in MGTOW, where you realize female nature is real. You realize that you've been lied to your entire life. You realize that society has not been trying to help you. Society's been lying to you, and there's been major disparities between you and women all your life. You realize things have not been equal, and you see the hypocrisy of things, and you feel like you've been victimized, but it's hard to express that. So you go through the rage where you just start lashing out at everyone and everything. and it can be uncontrollable. And it starts out with anger, and then it becomes hatred, and then when MGTOWs who've graduated beyond the red pill rage, we've come to the conclusion that hate is no good, because you spend all this time obsessing over someone, hating someone that probably may not even be in your life anymore. They're not thinking about you. They don't care what they've done to you, and you can't actually change it by just sitting there thinking about them all the time. It does more harm to you than anything else. Hatred can eat you alive. That's something that MGTOWs talk about. We say that indifference is the best type of revenge, because when you're indifferent to someone, you could care less if they live or die. And that's what the red pill rage is. And I went through that. So there's a lot of men coming with that are going to wake up and realize that women don't like the nice guy. They don't like the guy that doesn't go for what they want. They don't like the guy that sits there at dinner, pays for the bill, and expects them to make all the sexual advances or give them permission if they can touch them or kiss them, or basically they're looking for mommies. And
yeah, I hate that affirmative consent bullshit.
I mean,
it's making it like really dangerous for guys to just even like acknowledge the existence of a woman, because God only knows what the fuck she's gonna say. Like, ugh.
Well, what happens going forward though? Because look at that's the legacy of feminism. Can you understand now why there's also going to be a lot of angry men that were angry like me, and they are going to be just downright pissed off with women, not wanting to have anything to do with them, downright hating them. Can you understand where that hatred would come from?
Yeah, I think there definitely has to be an impetus there. I'm familiar with guys like Ragnar. I don't know if you know who he was. He was kind of way back in like the late 80s, early 90s. I'm sorry, I have a chest cold. He was basically one of the first MGTOW that I was ever aware of. And it was just that he said there's like all this fucking pressure to get married and have kids and do this and do that. And it was just, I just don't want to do that. I just want to do my own thing and be left the fuck alone. And, that's it. That's kind of where that was MGTOW to me, as far as I knew. And I'm sorry. So it was kind of like a really new, really weird thing, to see the anger and like, I wouldn't say vitriolic, because that would be undeserved rage, but the frustration and the anger, and it's really, you'd be kind of fucked over by society. Especially the way we're moving, is if you're a dude and you can't even be raped and you can't be abused and you're somehow responsible for everything, it's like the vagina is the goddess and the man is the devil. And that's kind of the dichotomy that they've created in society. And I don't think that most people normally think like that. I think it gets ingrained in you because that's the society you grow up in, but you're not consciously aware that that's how you think of things, because it's just part of our society. So I don't think girls in their 20s today, they probably just take it for granted and don't think about it. I certainly did. I didn't excuse me, I didn't think anything of it to be quite selfish. It didn't occur to me that I owed something in a relationship. Okay. without him saying, look, I need you to do this, that, or the other, because there was no like framework. Like for guys, there's a framework for what's expected. You kind of grow up and you already know it. But for women, it's like everything belongs to us. Fuck everything. And you don't have any path to follow if you want to be fair and be egalitarian.
So let me ask you this. The 25-year-old base mama sounds like a real cunt compared to the 35-year-old base mama. Am I going in the right path?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because you just don't know any better, to be honest. You are a cunt, but you don't know.
Okay, so you took advantage. So you can openly say you've taken advantage of men back when you were 25.
Well, I was married when I was 25.
Okay. So back in your life, you've taken advantage of men. You've done the female things. You haven't been all that great to men throughout your entire life.
Yeah, because you know, like I said, you're not taught that you have a responsibility to other people. So yeah, I mean, you'll take advantage of people not even realizing you're doing it because that's, you know, just the way it is or whatever.
Can you
So
can
yeah,
you tell us,
I would say.
now that you're aware of it, can you tell us some of the cunty things you think you've done to men?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm probably nowhere near as bad as oh, hang on one second, maybe he's crying. I wouldn't say I'm half as bad as most women are because even, you know, when I was younger and kind of a cunt, I thought women were horrible. But I think the biggest thing would be like I grew up with my brothers. I'm sorry. I always hung around my brothers, so I kind of tried to avoid it on purpose. But I would always expect the first date to be paid for by the guy, and I didn't realize that that's actually really kind of shitty and a financial thing. It's a unnecessary financial burden to the guy because maybe he can't really afford that, and you get told shit. I'm going to let you know something about what chicks get told. They get told that if, you know, go on a date with a guy, make sure he's paying for it and order the most expensive thing and watch his reaction. They tell you to fucking do that to like gauge the character of this person.
Who's they? Who's they telling you
It's like
this?
advice in magazines and your, you know, aunts and moms and other women and shit. They say that to you.
Order the most expensive thing and gauge his reaction for what?
Yeah, to see if he is, you know, stressed or pissed off or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you're like, what the fuck? Why? It seems stupid to me, but it's I don't know if you saw it. I was watching, I think it was maybe a Young Turks thing where they were like talking about women asking for men's credit scores on the first date. Like that's basically the, you know, updated version of that, is just trying to see how much he's got. And you're gauging this guy for wealth from the outset. It's like that is so fucked up. Like why
So I
would you
mean,
do that?
women's so narcissistic today. I mean, like I've had videos where I've said that I think that okay, women have priced themselves out of the sexual and reproductive marketplace because I don't know if you know this, but recently an article came out 2 days ago on Science Daily that where the MGTOW movement is actually being credited for the decline of marriage in America. It's being given as one of the major reasons why there is a decline in America, as men are now going their own way. So we're actually breaking through. And it's funny because with the decline of marriage and men saying that they don't want to get married anymore, and with such a risky environment, and you know you've given such perfect examples of thinking that you know the man should always pay, and you know initially when you were younger and women
Oh my
being
God, you know what you should do? I'm gonna tell you, my brother did this to a chick and I thought it was fucking awesome. He took her out to eat and then he was like, oh, I didn't bring my wallet. And then he gauged her reaction. But you know, flip it on them. Yeah, MGTOW is coming out big time because guys are, they know they're getting fucked. And why wouldn't that be your response? Like that's the thing. You make it so impossible for men to function, to like if they wanted to, you know, have kids in a family, that's a fucking risky game now. He could end up possibly homeless because she could just take his shit. And what's he gonna do about it? The
now.
system's stacked. Why wouldn't you become a MGTOW? Like
But
it makes
here's the
sense
thing.
financially.
Here's the thing, based with men going their own way, with so many men saying that we don't have want to have anything to do with women. You look at the legacy of feminism. I mean, does the future of men is gender segregation the future of men and women? I mean, will men and women eventually wake up and say, relationships return to a norm? Because I don't believe they will. Or do you think that women and men and women are going to be extremely divided going forward as a result of feminism?
I think, you know, given social history where this shit happens, I think that it's going to go one of two ways. It will either become a matriarchal society and then social progress will completely stagnate. If you look at matriarchal societies, they are like, we're talking like Stone Age, Bronze Age, maybe, and they exist right now because they're led by women who apparently can't make a fucking decision when it comes to leading a community. It's really difficult because they just haven't. When you sublimate men's natural ingenuity to improve things for those around them, that's part of that provider protector instinct. When you sublimate that, what you end up with is a stagnated society that there is no ingenuity, there is no progress, and that society atrophies and dies. And that's what's going to happen if it keeps going this way. Or you may have what I have some hope because of my kids' generation. They're awake to this shit even as kids, you know. They see what it's done. They see these crazy bitches screaming their heads off in pink, pussy hats and walking around like vaginas, and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? So they've made themselves so ridiculous that they're gonna I'm sorry, they're gonna rebel against that crazy, but it may not be a whole social shift. I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I wouldn't have called myself a traditionalist, but I guess that's kind of the box I fall into. If you take my life as it is, I like being a mom. I like being with my kids. I like embracing all the things that make me a woman, and not trying to take over everything, and not control the family situation and things like that. Because I think that's kind of the root of the problem. Is
Are you a full-time mom? Are you a stay-home mom?
I do stay at home.
Okay. Okay. So
I mean, well, I was working, and then we decided to have a baby, and he didn't want me to work and then put my kids in daycare, because we read a study that kids who are put in daycare, they end up having the same emotional, the same psychological and emotional response as children who were just straight up abandoned by their mothers. And I was like, holy fuck, really? I mean, I worked part-time, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And I really didn't realize that it was like that. And I felt like shit. You learn as you go, but,
now, you told me before we started the podcast, you told me that there's something unique about being a mother. You said that before you had your first kid, you weren't sure if it was for you, but then you had your first kid and you thought it was just awesome.
It is. It's really awesome to see people go from being babies into adults. It's just amazing. Especially to know that you get to be there the whole time. It's an honor. I think women today view children as accessories, as like a thing to move them along in society. I don't like to hang around other moms because it's all about, well, my little Kimmy can do math, blah blah blah, right? And it's like, okay, well, what about her? Like, what you want to know more than like what dance monkey dance like people do with their kids. I find it unsettling. But I like them. I like, knowing who they are as people, and it's cool to get to know them. I mean, just to watch them become who they will.
So you think that nurturing from a mother, it's something very paramount that a lot of women not only enjoy, but may need for stability in their own life. So it gives women something very special.
It does. I mean, feminism is the rejection of that natural nurturing instinct to care for young. I mean, think about, what does feminism push and promote more than anything else? I mean, what is there like one thing that they stomp on all the time and preach about? And it's abortion and reproductive rights. It's them getting out of having to be responsible for the natural consequence of sexual activity. They were basically trying to skirt the system. A guy doesn't have that option. If she decides, well, I'm going to have your kid and, fuck you, she can screw that dude for the rest of his life, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about men? You've heard of the cock carousel, obviously, right?
No, it sounds interesting. What is that?
The cock carousel. So basically, MGTOW say that women during their younger years they go around and fuck as many guys as possible. We call it riding the cock carousel. And then when they get older, they hit the wall. Then they want a nice man to come along and take care of them. So, I mean, what do you think about the very notion of women going around sleeping with a lot of guys during their younger years, and when they hit their 30s, wanting a relationship with a man, and men viewing them as, men rejecting them at that age? Because I mean, because we're headed towards that right now. You do realize that for our generation.
Yeah, I noticed the age of first time mothers has gone up to I think it's like 28 or 29 now, and it used to be 19. So you kind of wasted your most fertile years doing what? A fucking bunch of dudes for what purpose? Like it doesn't make any sense.
You know something interesting I've noticed, and maybe you can fill me in on this. I've noticed that mothers, like for example, women who have children, don't necessarily want women hanging around their kids. I don't know if it's true, but I've noticed a pattern that, for example, mothers they'll have other mothers who have children around their kids, but they don't necessarily invite single women around their kids, which is something that a lot of feminists have been complaining about. Like they feel left out, as they're not having children and they're not being invited to social gatherings.
I think it depends on the chick. If she's like weirdly creepy with your kids, like, oh my God, I want one, I think I would probably avoid that person as well. I do have single friends and I don't care. They're just like aunties or whatever. What I avoided and learned to avoid really, really fast after my ex and I split up was other single mothers. Um,
uh,
I went and got 3 jobs and I was busting my ass and trying to take care of my kids and keep things as much like it was before as I possibly could. And um, there were like these Facebook groups, single moms or whatever. And so I would go, and all they did was basically dump their kids somewhere and just get drunk. And that's not what it was sold as. It was like a time for, to spend moms and their kids for working moms. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. It's something, an activity that we can do and, you know, spend at least a little quality time together. And that was not what it was at all. And some of them, holy shit, they're whores. Like, oh my God, they are like not all obviously, but it used to be like if a woman, if she was widowed or she was divorced, she would go out of her way to make sure that there were, strong male role models in their children's lives and stuff like that. Because my mom's dad died when she was young, and her mom, went out of her way to find like, men to be in her life that were good, upstanding men and things like that. And but now it's like it's not my scene, man. It's just whatever.
okay,
If
so
you want to fuck your kids up, go ahead, but not my kids. Like,
a
fuck
lot
it.
of a lot of MGTOW say that you avoid single mothers because single mothers are whores and single mothers are toxic. So you agree that in your experiences, you've met a lot of single mothers who are toxic.
Oh yeah, you have some that aren't. I mean, some of them are like they're just as freaked out about it, as you are. But they put some girls are really really bad with social pressure. So, it's if it's the thing to do to be, a bar trolling skank and leaving your kids somewhere, they'll do it because everybody in the group is doing it. It's fucked up to see otherwise because women are conformist by nature, which is something else
Thank
they
you
like to
very much.
pretend. They
Thank you
are.
very much.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't know we were in agreement on that.
So, so you will agree that women do use in-group preference as well.
Oh, absolutely. They it's that's not so much an in-group preference as an in-group pressure, but they will push each other to do things that to keep with the conformity of the female group. And they do. I mean, if you ever spent any time around any girl high school clique, you've seen that in action.
So
Um,
women are collectivists by nature.
yes, it's part of our survival instinct. They
What?
are hypergamous and collectivist, and and okay, women are the culture bearers of a society. They pass down the values and traditions, et cetera, of the culture. It's part of their evolutionary purpose. But they are very conforming. So if you lack a strong male role model in your life as a woman, I can't really speak for guys on this because I'm not a guy. But if you lack a strong male role model, you're not going to learn those things that men can teach you, like standing your ground and being your own person. Oh, baby, oh, you're not going to have fortitude of character, because that's something that women used to have that they don't have. Personally, I think it's because they don't have their fathers in their lives, but women have no honor, no loyalty, no respect. And it's shocking how that is. Nobody talks about that.
Women, well, we talk about it.
Oh, do you?
We're like the only group that talk about it. That's the thing. But here's the thing. When I had Roaming Millennial on, she literally said the opposite of everything you said. That women can be loyal. Not all women are like that. Women are not collectivist thinkers. How can you say something like that? So again, this is like a completely different conversation.
Yeah, that's just the natural evolution of women. I mean, because women will nurture. Okay, like again, take it back to the hunter-gatherer. They will seek a mate that has good genetics, that is strong and able to defend, and they will seek a mate who can provide the most resources, and they will if you're not in a society that has some kind of restrictive bond like a marriage, they will seek the next guy up. If he's got more resources, they will do that, because that is how they ensure security for their children. You know what I mean? It's a natural evolutionary thing. I don't know why anybody would say that. That's not how it is. That's an archaeologist, an anthropologist. They will tell you that.
So let me ask you this:
are conformists, they are hypergamists. I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of lag.
As a woman, well, so can you admit, as a woman, you are attracted to a man with resources as well?
Yeah. What a woman environmentally comes to value is going to be different. Like, I grew up with my brothers. We didn't have money. It didn't occur to me that you should be looking for money or whatever, like, because I didn't hang around girls. I hung around guys. I played Dungeons and Dragons with my brothers. It I wasn't really actually aware of the I was kind of caught in the middle. Like, my sisters, read Teen Vogue and 17 and all of that shit. And so they, it was like the thing to find a guy in high school who had a car and all this shit. And I didn't really ever care about that. Because I was a geek. I mean, I was like, if a guy was smart, like, I really liked him. And it didn't really matter. Those were external things, but I realized, because because of the way other women treat me, I realized I was kind of a freak among women.
Okay, so that's actually a good point. So you admit that most women don't grow up like you. Most women are collectivists. Most women want a man with resources. They see what he has, and that's how they value him.
Oh yeah, well, look at the stupid first date advice. Order the most expensive thing and wait. I mean, what you're doing is scanning this guy for wealth. That's what you're fucking doing there. Like,
will feminism ever go away?
Will it ever go away?
In our generation, no. Okay, so I honestly think that the title feminism is going to die off soon, but I think the legacy of feminism will live on. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you'll probably see a lot of I'm sorry. You'll probably see a bigger shift. I think by the time I have grandkids, maybe you'll start to see it fall apart. And people are already pushing to go back to an amended form of traditionalism, where they may not marry, but they form, cohesive family units and all of the legal, aspects of that. I live in a state that doesn't have common law marriage. So you're starting to see more and more legislation come across in family law that addresses cohabitating couples. And that's kind of why I like where I live, because there is not really a lot of legislation for that. So I'm good. But sorry, I don't think, certainly not in my generation, maybe the next one, because my daughters, like, both of them are like, nothing turned little girls in this country off of feminism like that fucking Women's March.
You
That
know,
was insanity.
I'm noticing more and more, even in MGTOW, we're getting a lot of younger guys pop up, and it's the kids, it's the 14-year-olds, it's the 16-year-olds who are like, they're saying, we don't want to end up like you guys. They're more receptive, they're less pussy whipped or desperate than men my age and the millennials. I'm noticing that Generation Z, or the generation after them, they're the generation that's like realizing, yeah, feminism is cancer, don't want to have anything to do with feminism. And I'm seeing that more and more. So I think that you make a lot of rational points that I think our generation, the millennials, we're done. Do you agree with that?
What do you mean done?
I mean, don't
done with
expect me.
feminism?
I mean, no. I mean, we're done in terms of, don't expect us to save the world. Don't expect us to change anything.
Well, I think kind of the deal you've been given, you can't really ask your generation to do that. I mean, it would be very, you can't ask men who have spent their entire lives being shit upon to somehow just dust off the shit and lift society up again. That you can't do that. You can't stomp somebody into the ground and expect them to come save you when you call. Like, that's not going to happen.
Now, you do realize that, for example, Trump is he's gonna cut a lot of the entitlements. You're aware of that. You can agree on that, right?
Oh yes, thank God. No, dude, I worked I work in medicine, like or I was working in medicine doing like Medicaid and all that stuff. You wouldn't believe the amount of fucking women on that shit that don't need to be on that shit. And oh God, that's kind of why I know their dirty side, is because they will take money from guys, and they'll take money from the government too. They don't care.
Now,
It's very
here's the thing about that. I mean, welfare, Medicare, all of this stuff came along around the 1960s, 70s, and women began living off these entitlement programs. So many of these entitlement programs are running out now. Social Security will completely run out of money. The funds for Social Security, the trust fund, Social Security is two funds. It's Social Security Disability and then Social Security, which is retirement, but it makes up the Social Security fund. Social Security will completely run out of money in 2034. After 2034, there will be no more money in the Social Security funds, and any money that goes to Social Security will have to come strictly from payroll taxes. Now, the Republicans are talking about getting rid of Social Security, getting rid of Medicaid, Medicare, getting rid of, and also getting rid of Section 8. We know Section 8 is going to be scrapped. We already know Section 8 is going to be scrapped. Donald Trump has said that food stamps, no one should be on food stamps for 10 years. So we know that shit's coming to an end very soon. Is
it bad that all of this kind of makes me really, really happy? I'm like, yes. Fucking do it. Do it. Cut it all off. Fuck them. If they're so, empowered and they don't need no man or whatever, then fucking cut it all off. I don't give a shit.
You sound like a real cunt when it comes to the suffering of women, because that's what they're gonna call it.
Dude, when you're a single mom busting your fucking ass and you're around these bitches that get Section 8, they got a free cell phone, they got free cable, they got free internet, they got free fucking everything, man. Everything. And they're out every fucking weekend, or sometimes in the middle of the week, whatever, drunk off their fucking ass at a bar, half naked, calling you because they're too shit-faced to drive home. I need to ride home. Fuck it. Yep. Take it all. Go on.
I said it. I've been saying it in I've been saying it in the videos, that women who actually are able to survive in the new economy, when entitlements go away, the women that are able to survive, they're going to walk over other homeless women, and they're not going to feel sorry for them. I've said it, that women don't feel sorry for each other. Men have more sympathy towards women than women do.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you notice, like, after the cologne thing, the fucking feminists were crickets, man. Fucking crickets. And he was like, holy shit, this is fucked up. Fucking MRAs, man. Why are men's rights activists watching your stupid ass? Oh, that made me so mad. And then they come out like 2 weeks later, like, well, here's why we didn't say anything. Like, fuck you guys. That shit's bullshit. They were covering their ass. They came into a situation that they didn't know how to handle because it was primarily feminists who were like, we need to welcome these people, blah, blah, blah. Didn't fucking think about it. Didn't even consider the consequences of bringing in people from a completely different culture and not, these are refugees or migrants or whatever. You're not getting people like on visas who've been vetted, who have working, who have skills or whatever, and they don't have anything to do. They don't, you know, speak the language. It's really fucked up. And then, of course, bad shit happens. Like there's a ton of theft and all this shit, and they were silent. Oh God, it fucking drove me crazy. It just drove me fucking crazy, man.
So I've said it before that when shit hits the fan, first off, a lot of jobs are being removed. And this is what I want to talk about, really get into. A lot of jobs are vanishing right now. For example, lower paying jobs, McDonald's, that whole fight for 15. This year, all 14,000 McDonald's locations will be getting kiosks. Chase Manhattan, people don't realize that Chase Banks cut 5,000 jobs last year, replacing tellers with automated machines. They basically put ATMs in front of the teller booths where the teller booths used to be. They are now ATMs, and they are continuously working to replace lower paying jobs or less jobs with lower barriers for entry that typically women would go to. Cashiers are being replaced, tellers are being replaced, data entry jobs are being replaced. I'm sure that when it comes to such as even in medicine, I'm sure they're looking for ways to cut back on medical staff. So as more jobs dry up for women, because companies are cutting back on the number of hours that they're giving to employees, we're entering an economy of the gig economy where people work less. They don't work full time anymore, so that companies don't have to give them, maternity leave, or they don't have to give them health insurance and all those other things. As we approach this, women are pricing themselves out of the economy. First off, you have men choosing not to marry them. A lot of men saying, "I don't want to marry. Hell, I don't even want to have sex with you because it's not worth it." You have the government pulling back on entitlements and saying, "We're going to cut your Section 8. We're cutting your food stamps. You can no longer." When single people will no longer be able to file as heads of households. So women who have a bunch of children, and they don't even work, they won't be able to get $10,000 back in tax returns anymore. So with all of that shit gone, they can't find men to take care of them. The government's not taking care of them, and they're too and companies are the nature of the job market is changing, and companies are increasingly saying you're too expensive to hire. What happens to these young women who come out of college with $40,000 in student loans and they can't find a job, they can't find a man, and the entitlements have evaporated that generations of women have been living off? What happens to the 25-year-old who can't find any options? My belief is that we're going to have FEMA camps. We're going to have women, a lot of homeless women, and we're going to see more women homeless in this coming generation than probably at any previous time in history. What do you think of that theory?
It is definitely a possibility, because if you're coming out of college basically useless, and yeah, well, to be honest, I think women at that age would probably just use their sexual capital to try to get somebody to take care of them. Like after I went to college, and I got a skill. Like I can, go back to work now if I want to, and I could take care of my kids and I'd be fine. You just have to keep up on your certifications, really. But most chicks won't do that. They'll go to college to get what we call the MRS degree, just to get married. That's what they're there for. I think that a lot of them are going to be fucked, especially if you can't find a guy that's willing to take care of you. Because if you can manage to get through college without having a fucking marketable skill, I think what you're gonna need in your life is somebody who's basically just gonna take care of you. Um, and there's going to be a really finite supply, especially if you have a large enough MGTOW population, right? They're not going to have anything to do with you. Fuck you, right? So you're going to have a really finite supply of men that are going to want to take care of you.
Well, it goes further than that. I mean, for example, yeah, you have the MGTOWs, But I find that it's men who actually are able to create resources and men who are able to create wealth for themselves and take care of themselves who are increasingly choosing not to have a relationship with women. I don't know, have you realized that a lot of men these days don't make good providers?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of that is the discouragement from doing that. That's toxic masculinity to be successful somehow. While at the same time, of course, you never stop being expected to be successful. Um, it's fucked up. But to be honest, I know it's gonna sound shitty and fucked up, but I'd leave them on their ass.
What?
If they're not, I'd leave them on their ass. I wouldn't help them out. I mean, I've seen the dirty side of chicks. They're fucked up, all right? They are fucked up chicks, okay? They will take your shit. There are chicks who will fucking do that. And to be honest, it's the majority of them until they grow the fuck up and realize that they aren't the most important person in the whole fucking world. And you have to give something back. You have to be worth a dude's time and resources. And if you're not going to even put in any fucking effort into that, then you can't really expect him to just go, "Oh, you're a homeless lady. Let me take care of you." Fuck that. Guys are gonna guys are gonna be on top of that because men tend to think in a very fixed way, whereas women are emotional linear thinkers, and they're gonna be weighing the cost benefit of this coming up into the future a lot heavier than they have been, and they're gonna quit. They're just going to go, nope, the system's rigged, fuck it. And they're not going to do anything. So chicks are going to be, they're going to be in a really bad state because they won't have a guy to marry to fall back on in case they don't make it. And I think a lot of chicks, from what I've seen, they look at it like that. If I don't become successful, well, I'll just go get married.
And they don't realize that a lot of that is not going to be around. By the way, I just got a question for you because I'm looking at the picture. Is that is that a real picture of you?
That's a painting based on a picture, yeah.
It's a painting. Are your tits real?
Yes.
You've gotten that question before.
Yeah, it's mostly from feminists. They hate that picture. Oh my God, I love it so much. Um, they always comment. They're always so like anytime we talk about feminism, they'll come in my comment section and be like, "You look like a whore. You don't have to show your body like that to have a mind." And it's like, "Oh fuck you." Now you're getting even more of it just because you're a bitch.
Well, by the way, let's talk about your tits and your body for a minute. So you're a good looking girl. You have a really nice body.
All
You've got
right.
huh?
All right. Yes.
Okay. How do you maintain? I mean, do you work out? Do you take care of yourself?
Yeah. I do. I have four boys, and boys are, they're loud, they're active, and if you want to be involved with them, man, you got to be loud and active too. And so I wouldn't say that I work out, but I spend a lot of time with my kids. So we like play games and play baseball and football and stuff like that. Um, so that's what we do. I don't know. I don't like consciously exercise. It's
Do you
just
watch
I could,
TV?
huh?
Do you watch what you eat?
Yeah, I don't. I eat a really low carb diet because it kind of slows you down. Not super duper low carb, just I don't make carbs the basis of my diet. So I don't eat like a lot of sweets or chips or things like that. I mostly eat vegetables and meats. Um, that's yeah.
Okay, so you take care of yourself. You're obviously not an alcoholic, and and you stay active. That's not something that a lot of young women do today. Most young women are burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, they really don't take care of themselves. That's something else that really bothers me about this intersectional feminism. I hate that. Like they're adopting all of these other causes. And that's what I was saying before. The body positivity or whatever isn't actually body positivity. They don't want you to be healthy and take care of yourself. And I'm sorry, they don't want you to look good and feel good. They want you to like worship them looking like shit. Like, why would you expect that? That's retarded. If you wouldn't take a guy who was obese, why would a guy want a girl who's obese? Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
I
Sorry.
remember seeing something on Facebook. They show there was like someone did this thing where they showed a huge a really fat woman with a slim guy in shape, and they said this is they call this like equality and girl power, and then they show a guy a fat guy with a really beautiful woman, and they call that like oppression. And it's funny how they look at things differently. A really fat woman, obese woman, unshapely woman with a handsome man, that's something that feminists are saying is possible, when in reality, as a man, I used to bodybuild, and I think to myself, I worked out so hard. Why would I want some big fat sloppy woman around me?
Well, logistics aside, a very obese woman is not, she's not what you would want to have in a mate. She would be unhealthy. Her children would potentially be very unhealthy. Or her pregnancy would be incredibly risky. There's like, even if you took it down to the most basic thing, a guy's not going to a fit guy with good genetics is not going to want to breed with a fat woman with bad genetics. That's just the way it is. People kind of prefer people who are about equal to them in looks, kind of on the 1 to 10 scale or whatever. So, and everybody wants to trade up, right? Like, everybody wants somebody that's hotter than them until they do. Because you find out that they're vacuous. Sorry. But you can't expect some giant woman to be a healthy mother to your offspring. How would she even take care of them? She clearly can't take care of herself. Like, God, she could fall over and die of a heart attack.
You're mean.
I'm just being realistic. Like, why would you want that woman? Because she's not healthy, so she's not taking care of herself. I mean, that wouldn't be an optimum mate for you. Like, that's the thing that bothers me about it. I mean, feminists are infinitely offended by me because I say shit like this, and that's, quote, unsensitive. I don't give a shit. It's the truth. What guy who's fit and fertile wants to mate with a woman who is not fit and not very fertile and potentially a liability to him? Like,
Can you also understand like why men also are like very pissed off with the whole cock carousel thing? Like, why would a guy want a woman that's ridden like a dozen or a couple dozen dicks, and then basically she wants to settle down like a housewife? I mean, do you understand like a guy rejecting a woman that's fucked a lot of other guys, and why that would be so unappealing?
I would guess it would signal that she's been rejected by other mates, and then also that she would not be faithful.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's kind of gross for a guy. Like, you don't want something that a bunch of other guys have also had. It talks about the level of hypergamy, and it's just, if a woman sleeps around, there's all kinds of things about her. One, yeah, it's going to make it more difficult for her to commit. Two, I mean, everything is not going to be, her vagina is not going to be this. It's not going to be anything close to a virgin's, if you get what I mean.
I'm not a dude, so I'm going to take your word for it.
But I mean, I believe that it's very much the same thing, similar in the respect, just like why a guy wouldn't want to fuck a fat girl, why he wouldn't want to sleep with a girl marry a girl that's been with a ton of different guys.
Well, she wouldn't make a suitable mate. I mean, it's down to the biology. I mean, it really is. It is. I wouldn't say that the disqualifications are the same. For an obese mate, you wouldn't, because she would be a health risk. But taking STDs out of it, for a female that's overly sexually active to want to find a life mate, that's going to be really difficult, because unless she has some other factor that would make her more trustworthy, I don't think that. I mean, I'm trying to think of it. If I were a dude and I was trying to get married, and I was looking for a wife, and I, found a chick hot who was a total whore, I don't think I could trust her to be faithful, to be loyal. That I would just be real sketchy. It doesn't speak well to her character, I guess, is what I'm saying. It just, you'd have to be real I'd be real careful. I wouldn't necessarily disqualify it, but I'd be real careful. I'd want to know more about her, I guess, but Jesus.
So your final thoughts on feminism and the legacy of feminism. You don't believe that there's really a lot of hope for our generation, the millennials, but you think that sometime in the future, like our grandkids' generation, that men and women may return to more of a traditional type of society.
Yeah, I think actually that's where my kids' generation is actually headed. They're very accepting of things like LGBT and stuff like that, but I think they realize that we've lost a value system that we had at some time, or that our society is based on, and they're kind of looking around for it. And they're seeing that there's a huge divide between men and women, and that women seem to be the antagonists of this divide. Like I said, for my daughters, that fucking women's march, I didn't make comment. I just let them watch it. And my daughter, who's 9, was like, "What the hell? These are grown-up women." Like, she was really shocked by this behavior. And I didn't make comment on it. I just let her form her own opinion. But if you don't comment on it and just let them kind of see what people do, they'll come around to common sense pretty quickly. I think if you're not making, emotional, I'm sorry, I still have this chest cold. If you're not making emotional appeals to get people on your side, and they see what you do, they'll know. Kids aren't dumb. They know who the dick is. You know what I mean? They can figure out who the asshole is pretty quick.
Okay. All right. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed me having Based Mama on. I think that this was actually a great chat, and I think we got a lot of comment, a lot of great questions, a lot of great things answered. I definitely want to have her on again. So if I can get her on again, I will have her on again to grace us with her presence and those beautiful tips. and definitely let me know what you think in the comment section if you have any questions. Also, don't forget to check out her channel. I linked it in the chat. By the way, guys, come on. If you seriously, I mean, she was completely different than what the hell, roaming millennial. So if you guys are still pissed off, fuck you.
Okay. I don't know the history there. So I'm like, all right.
Like I said, there were a lot of people who were complaining that roaming millennial was like, for example, she didn't admit that men and women were divided. She didn't admit that women were collectivists. She didn't, or that, they had in-group preference. She didn't, it was hard to have a conversation. So, if I brought someone on that, admitted to these and actually talked about female nature, and they're still going to kick me in the balls over it, that's why I'm like throwing out a big fuck you. So if you guys enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MGTOW or death. And cheers.